Okay, I'd like to start by apologizing for being away for a few weeks. My job keeps me really, really busy, and I've just been, and I had another build I was working on. I had to finish up the Dragon's Lair, but now I can come back to this build here of the Xenon Mini Virtual Pinball. As you can see, I've drawn up some loose plans here that show measurements. I've also got a hold of some graphics here, so when we're ready to get to that stage, I'll show you exactly how I do all that. So with these, I basically, once I have a good solid blueprint going, blueprint plans, um, then I print out an extra one on cardstock, a little bit thicker, and you really don't even have to worry about the measurements so much right now. You're just going to basically cut out the main side panel and the main panel for the head right now. You'll worry about these front panels and the bottom panels here in a little bit. But what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to cut out these two panels. I'm going to cut out the side panels, get them sanded, um, and then we'll start putting it together here. Um, the main, so all it really is just the main side panels, that side panel, and then your width is all 2 3/8 inches wide on everything. So the support panel, these two square pieces, every width on the machine is that 2 3/8 inch wide. So here's the basic materials that I built these things out of. I just use scrap wood. I'm a woodworker. I'm an artist for a living, and I always have like scrap wood and stuff in my shop. The sides are going to be built out of 1/4 inch MDF, and you can get this stuff real cheap at Home Depot. You get like a whole 2 by 8 or a 4 sheet of it, 2 foot by 4 sheet of it for around $8 or so for this stuff. I always have it sitting around, so I always just use scrap for everything. Um, these popsicle sticks, like tongue depressors or whatever, I'm just going to use those for the trim on the outer part of the head, to give it a little bit of extra look. That's kind of an optional thing, if you didn't want to do that, you didn't have to. But I like to try to give my cabs a little bit of scale detail. This is just poplar stock, measurements right there, 1/4 inch, and it comes in big long strips. And I use this stuff for the support pieces and cross beams. And here's another piece. I'm going to cut a longer piece of this that's the size of the phone. That's going to be the main piece that holds the phone. And I'll probably plane a little bit of the thickness off of that, maybe just a little bit on a sander, just to add more space in the cab in case I decide to ever go with an external battery. I really haven't tested the battery on it. It's very small, and I'm only going to be running a couple of little LEDs on it, one at a time. This is what I'm going to use for the head. It's a little bit thinner than the 1/4 inch. It's just about a 1/16 of an inch thinner, so it's maybe around 3/16 inch wide. I'm going to use that for the head and then sand it out real nice, put some filler on top, and that's the basic materials I'm going to use. Here's this acrylic sheet. It's not plexi. It's like acrylic sheet. You can get this stuff at Lowe's for about $4 or $3.50 for a sheet like this. And then epoxy. And then once the two main bottom braces here are in, I'm going to run a couple of little screws in from the side, just for extra, stability and support on the side panels. So, okay, what I'm going to do first here is I'm going to take my cardstock thicker paper here, and I'm going to take a ruler for accuracy and an X-Acto, and I'm just going to cut out along the black edges of the line on the side panel and the head side right here for starters. So I'll be right back when that's done. Okay, so here we are with the sides cut out from our cardstock template. Used an X-Acto to cut out right to the black on the edges. I always use a ruler and X-Acto for accuracy. Don't use scissors just because you're always going to be off with scissors. It's impossible to cut a straight line with scissors. Anyway, what we're working with right now is just these two side pieces, right? The head side piece and then the side panel piece, okay? Again, you don't really need to worry about the measurements because they're already done for you. When you cut it out, it'll already be 100% size that it needs to be. So what I've done here is I've just used these, lined it up to an edge here. I always like to use one flat edge when I can, because it eliminates your need to be accurate on the cutting, and it leaves you with fewer cuts. But here's a couple of pieces. One's going to be the left side, one's going to be the right side. Two pieces for the head. And then now I'm going to cut them out. Now here's the big thing for most people. A lot of people don't have a whole shop full of tools, so I'm going to talk for just a second about saws. I use a jigsaw, or no, this is a scroll saw. This is a 30-year-old, 35-year-old Dremel scroll saw, but it does a fantastic job. It uses a really thin blade. The blade is like super thin and flexible, but it gives you really excellent super accurate cut. Once you get good on one of these things, it's really easy to use. Again, not everyone has one. Something more common that you could use that I wouldn't, though. I mean, I would really find somebody that has a scroll saw, or you could possibly even take the plans, the vector plans to a lot of local towns have maker groups, and those groups have funding to have like a laser cutter or whatever. You could always have these side pieces cut out of thin plywood that laser cutters use, or you could find a guy that has a shop full of tools or whatever. I prefer to use a scroll saw just because of the accuracy. These saws, a jigsaw uses a thick blade. I mean, I'll use a jigsaw when I gotta make like a full-size cap, I mean, so the ideal saw is a scroll saw. The next best thing to a scroll saw would probably be a band saw. However you cut it out, or there's a Rockwell saw that's pretty accurate. However you do cut it out, be careful because this thing is small, the size of your hand, so you're going to be doing some cutting that's close to the blade. So I would suggest, obviously use safety equipment. If you don't feel comfortable doing it, get someone to cut it out for you. If I was younger, I would say go to a high school wood shop and have the teacher cut it out for you real quick. But I mean, I can't even think of any high school as a wood shop anymore. But that's how I do all my stuff. I use a scroll saw. So anyway, I'm going to cut these out real quick and I'll be right back, and we'll get into the meat of doing the cross beam sections. We'll cut all those out at once. For accuracy on the cross beam sections, this is stuff we're going to be using for the two main supports. What I do is I use a miter saw, a compound miter saw, to cut all of the cross pieces at once. If you cut all that wood at once in one single cut, then you're assured of all the widths being exactly that 2 3/8 inches wide that they need to be, and you won't have, instead of cutting them out individually, that way you cut everything at once, all your pieces will be accurate instead of trying to cut all your crossbar pieces separately. And the miter saw will give you a perfect up and down angle. It's going to be important that you have a good 90-degree angle on the sides of that wood in order to make sure your cap doesn't come out crooked or whatever. You need it to be straight up and down. But I'm going to cut these out real quick, come back into doing the cross pieces in just a second. Okay, so here we are with the with the two side pieces cut out, and then the pieces cut out for the head actually is plywood for this, the thin plywood. So those are the two side pieces, and as you can see, you can get, this is just a raw cut from the table saw. So you can get pretty accurate with it. However, they still need a little bit of sanding. So what I do is I'll lay a piece of sandpaper flat against the flat surface, and I'll go over the edges lightly, sweeping across. I'm holding my phone, but I mean, you get the idea. And then I'll do that with each piece, and mark your inner pieces. So this is going to be the right side, so we'll mark it right inside, left inside, and then you have your two pieces marked. These are going to come together and be your side pieces like that. Okay, so but after you do your edges on all your pieces, what I do after that is I sandwich them together, and then what you do is you get a clamp. Grab a clamp over here real quick. Should have had that ready, but you know, my studio's a horrible mess right now. I have to clean it like once a month because it gets to be a disaster. Anyway, line these guys up and then clamp them together. Make sure they're lined up as closely as possible. Clamp them together. And then once you have them clamped together nicely and lined up as closely as possible, then you get yourself a piece of sandpaper. This is 120 grit, by the way, like a medium. And then you just make yourself a little sanding block. And what you do is you go over your sides with them clamped tightly together. That's going to ensure that you get the sides level and each piece as, you know, as close as possible to being exactly the same, so nothing's lopsided or anything when you build the thing. But anyway, I'm gonna final sand these, and when I come back, I'll cut the cross pieces, measure and cut the cross pieces, and then it'll be time to start putting it together. Alrighty, once you're happy with where you're at on the sanding of the pieces and you feel that they're both evenly sanded and everything, you can forget about the head pieces for now. We'll come back to the head later. It's time to do the cross member pieces, 2 3/8 inches. Okay, so accuracy is pretty important on this. So what I do is I use a compound miter saw. That thing's about 20 years old. But it's accurate, and if you cut everything, if you stack everything all at once and do one cut, then you're assured, if everything's lined up properly, of each piece being the appropriate width. So these two square pieces are going to be the main beef of the main braces of what holds these two pieces together. From there we'll have our side piece that goes in and holds the phone, and we'll have I always cut out a couple of extra pieces at the proper width, just in case, you know, just to have a few extra pieces that are at the proper width in case I screw something up or I need to go back. It's always good to have a few extra pieces, so I always do a lot of cross member pieces for my projects, just to make sure I have that extra. But I'm going to cut these real quick and I'll be right back. Okay, so here we are. Cross pieces cut at 2 3/8 inches. The extra pieces cut at the same width. You can see as I hold this up to the iPhone, it's just a little skosh, just a tiny bit wider than the iPhone, because there's buttons on the side of here. You don't want it shimmed in there so hard that it can't reach, but It's hard to see on the video, but it's just a little tiny bit wider than the iPhone on each side, and that's gonna be the overall width of your cap. So basically, here's how we're going together here. You know, and the plan from here on out is pretty much you could just follow the video. The plan is just kind of for reference. We'll get to the bottom panel and all that later. What I'm just gonna do is put the main cap together, but here's how it's gonna go together. Flat surface, and then what I do is I'm gonna mark a 1/8 inch on each side on the insides, and I'm going to use just a piece of this is hardboard. It's like thin MDF. It's about $6 a sheet for a 2x4 sheet of this stuff, and this is what I'm going to use for the panels. So the bottom panel is going to be made out of that stuff, and basically what I do is I line up on the inside, and then I just draw a line, and that tells me where I'm going to glue the square panel. So I'm going to do that real quick and just come back and show you. Okay, so you can see on each piece where I've gone in and traced out the 1/8 inch inside, and that's basically the same width of the panel. And I actually just stick a piece of the stuff up to the side, and I use that as the ruler to trace it. That way you're ensured that the thickness is right. Here's how your square pieces are going to go in. Use those guides that you drew, and that's how you're going to glue in your square spacer. And what that does, or your square cross beam, and what that does is it allows you end up with enough space for your panels on the outside of the framework. And then of course, once those are glued on both sides, that get glued up, then we'll have a basic frame to work with. What I'm going to do though, to make sure for accuracy, is I've got a piece of this stuff that I've laid down, and I'm going to go in with a blade here, and since I'm going to be epoxying this stuff together, I scratch the area it gets glued a little bit, rough it up a little bit with a X-Acto on each side, just to make sure that what you're doing there is you're giving the you're tearing up the wood a little bit so the epoxy doesn't just sit on top of it. And then you do the same thing here to your cross pieces. And once you have the little glue areas kind of roughed up, once the epoxy sits on there, it'll soak in a little bit, and it'll soak into each piece, and it'll just add additional strength. We're gonna back that up with screws also, but I mean, it's just for the added level of strength. But here's how it's gonna go together basically. Two cross pieces are there. Once I have some epoxy on there, then I'm going to basically put these two pieces together and glue them up. Kind of just, you're going to get a little glue on your fingers or whatever. And then I'll clamp them together. Okay, so let me do that real quick and show you where we're at after that. Okay, so after a little foozling around and a little struggling, you can see here how I have the little jig glued up, clamps on both sides. Everything's epoxied up and drying now. You can see how I used this little piece of 1/8 to kind of hold these up. It makes it easier when trying to clamp these things together. You want to try, if you have one of these cutting tables that has the lines on it, you can also line up your edges to make sure you're accurate and nothing's lopsided or whatever. And with the miter saw, that makes sure these edges are straight 90 degrees, so you're up and down and everything's going to be good to go on the cab. So I'm going to come back in a second when that's all set up, and we'll take a look at adding some more crossbar pieces.